there is much now that we know in terms of genetics and epigenetics. So genes are something that are there in the fetus, but what is the environment of the fetus is also
Mm.
programming them to what's going to happen in the future.
That's interesting. The environment within, and then once you come out, then still it's the environment.
Yes,
That's a lot.
yes,
That's a
yes.
lot. I did see with me studying with the masters in public health, like we're in a this is dear to my heart, like the childhood obesity epidemic that we're dealing with. I
Mhm.
can't remember the numbers exactly, but there will be a high increase of diabetes in kids from 12 to 19. And my hope is like, how can we like reverse this, or how can we, get ahead of this with the kids?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm a pediatric endocrinologist, so I
Mm,
see this day in, day out. When I was at SUNY State University of New York, that's where I did my fellowship. There were a lot of African American kids who would come in
mm,
with type 2 diabetes. So, usually when in the past when we would talk about diabetes in kids, it was mostly in reference to type 1 diabetes. But now the
mm-hmm,
type 2 diabetes is much more rampant in this age category as well. So, what has changed is, yes, that gestational diabetes, again, that's a non-modifiable risk factors. We're also seeing a lot of kids who are born underweight and then they suddenly catch up. Again, that's a non or somewhat modifiable risk factor, but also the degree of exposure of these processed foods, the salt, high fat, high sugar foods that they're
hmm
exposed from right from childhood. So if we were to take a decade ago or like 50 years ago, uh, the tendency towards eating outside food was not that much, even though it may not be that healthy, but then we were not eating that amount of high salt, high sugar, high fat foods that we're eating now. The tendency towards eating high amount of sugar containing beverages is so much. Day in, day out, everybody's eating, drinking a lot of sodas. So that is putting all the teenage population or even adults at a very high risk of type
yeah.
2 diabetes. Yeah.
I feel like I consumed a lot of sugar as a kid, but I think I was a lot more active
Hmm.
as a child.
Yeah, and so it did play some role, if I'm allowed to say that, Amber, because
Hmm.
because that's probably also one reason you might have developed gestational diabetes because you became metabolically unhealthy. But then it came into picture only during pregnancy, is because pregnancy hormones, they tend to have an insulin resistance effect. So when your
Mm,
body was under that pressure and insulin resistance increased, that's when it came into picture. But before that, because you were active, we didn't see that happen.
mm,
But thankfully now that you're in fitness and now things have changed and you're metabolically healthy, you're
yeah,
able to take care of it in a much
yeah.
better fashion. So that does play a big role. I have seen a lot of people who have been overweight all their life, and I'm not saying that it's good or a bad thing to do that, but because they are overall eating a well balanced meal, but because of some reason in their lifetime they may have eaten a little higher portions than their activity, they became overweight. But then because their eating habits are still okay, they are still metabolically healthy and they have not developed diabetes, versus
Mm.
people who, even with a lesser weight, lesser BMI, not that degree of obesity, just being overweight, tend to develop diabetes very quickly because of the environment that they have created and because of their lifestyle and day-to-day diet that they're taking.
I've definitely been reading a little bit more about like when you say metabolically, like not on a good route. In my head, I'm thinking lack of muscle. Is that a good way to think about it?
So there's more to that. So yes, lack of muscle, because muscles do play a big role in insulin sensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
but also how much fat is deposited around the organs. So if
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of, we call it visceral adipose tissue, which means that the inner organs have a lot of fat around it, there is a much higher risk of developing insulin resistance, which means that your pancreas, whatever insulin it's producing, it's not able to work properly, and it is ending up having to produce a lot, and ultimately at some point in time it'll get tired and then we'll develop type 2 diabetes.
And it doesn't necessarily, like I tell my daughter, she's small, like one of my kids, well, I have two of them, they're small. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm not, I'm fine. I'm like, no, you're skinny fat. Like, just because you are not obese, you still need to worry about your health because I feel like they have more fat on them, even though they may be small and tiny, because
Hmm.
they don't have enough muscle on them to help with this insulin regulation of their bodies.
Very true, very true, and that bang on. And that's what I, a lot of times I tell my patients as well, that, you really need to work on that muscle, because once you develop that muscle, the insulin sensitivity will increase. And yes, you are going to be in a better shape, in a better metabolically healthier condition. Uh, Even though there is still a little bit of waist circumference fat, but at least that muscle part is preventing that from happening, preventing the adverse effects of it from happening, and maybe or delaying it, if not preventing it
Hmm.
completely. Yes, very good point. Yeah. So, Amber, it has been lovely chatting with you and talking to you and knowing you. I'm so happy that you've been here and giving us your insights about all this. And it's such a wonderful information that we have now. And but I would want to leave our listeners with some positive note, and your key take points, and would want to hear from you.
Okay. So what I've gotten from today, three key points that would help us as African Americans. Number one, I would say go get screening. So if you have, like Dr. Sumeet said, like the darkening of the neck, the waist circumference is pretty big. And if it was one more that you had just said with the circumference, the neck, was that it?
And the
Oh, and family
yes, family
history.
history, the diet. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have family history, you need to get checked out. Number two, I would say that the food. So let's try to find different ways to, change some ingredients in our food prep. Look up recipes, healthier recipes, and try to at least add a little bit more. Like I tell my clients, food, eat the rainbow. So that's with that, with the food. And number three, my last one, for me personally, when I tell all my clients, and as Dr. Sameet has, you know, um, confided in me or agrees with me, that taking some steps, I would say at least take, if you don't have anything to count your steps, at least take like 2 to 20, 30 minute walks a day. If you can't do that, at least just get outside every day and start taking some steps. And that way it will combat some sleep, it will combat stress, and then that way you get your physical activity. So those are my big three takeaways.
Such good points. I think those are the most important points that you brought up. And the last one is, very special, because exercise, movement, all this is a big one that helps with insulin sensitivity. And yes, and hoping that, these 3 points could be implemented right away. It doesn't take much to just
Yeah.
start it today. So thank you, Amber, for being here, and it was wonderful,
Thank you for
wonderful
having me.
chat. Yes. Yeah. Thank
Same.
you.
Thanks.